Welcome to another episode of Always Ageless with Valerie V. Today, we are excited to have Laura Maldonado with us. Laura has a background in corporate America for years. And after deciding that she wanted to do something that was more personal to her, her friend of hers said, what could you do that would be kind of like that work? And that's what brought Laura to where she is today. So we're just going to go right into the show and let Laura get started telling us a little bit about herself. Thank you, Laura, very much for being with us on Always Ageless.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Can you tell us a little bit more about your background, how you got started in the decluttering and the downsizing business?
Yeah, so a little bit more about my background. I have literally been into decluttering and organizing since I was in elementary school. And it just really runs through my veins. It's definitely a part of who I am. And so I got started in it. More of my background. Yeah, I worked for corporate America for many years. I have a couple of degrees, finance, accounting, and high-end account management. I literally used to sell gum and mints to the literally to grocery stores at their corporate buying offices. And it was a great training ground for customer service skills, which I use every day, whether it's with friends or my clients that I work with now. Communication is key. And if you don't have good communication and follow-up, you're not going to succeed in any business, including mine.
Tell us about that fateful day. Tell us about that fateful day when your friend approached you and talked to you about changing your careers.
Yeah, so she came to visit, and I had expressed some disappointment over being laid off from a couple of jobs in over 4 years. Not because of me, just because, their businesses' sales went down. And I wanted to be in better control of my life and in my finances. And because, organizing and decluttering is really about some control. And so she said to me, Laura, what wouldn't feel like working to you? And literally immediately I said organizing. And it took me back. It was kind of like, it was the first time in my life that I realized, can I actually make a living and take care of myself by doing something I love? Do I get to be one of those lucky people that loves what they do? Because I spent many years doing things that were okay, but certainly nothing like something that is just in my DNA, decluttering and organizing. And actually, I do packing and unpacking too. So it was a wonderful, it wasn't even a light bulb. It was a spotlight that went on when my friend asked me that question. And I'm really grateful she did.
So what caused you to decide that you wanted to start your own business rather than go to work for somebody else?
Because I am a take charge kind of person. I always have been. I don't mind working underneath people and, having a manager. But in this case, I don't need a manager. I know what I'm doing. It's just something that is so natural to me. And I've done it for years. So I really don't need somebody coaching me on how to do it. It's just I know how to do it innately. And the other thing too is I had just gotten, even in corporate America, I got laid off, right? Corporate mergers and all of that. So I didn't want to put myself, I should say, in a situation where I was going to get laid off again.
Yep, well, that's a wise move. Many of us have gone through those same thoughts and had to make those decisions for ourselves as well.
Yeah, I understand.
I'm assuming that you're glad you made that decision.
I am beyond glad. My heart is full with the literally, it sounds really weird, but the joy that what I do now brings me. It's a blessing. There's no doubt about it. I love it.
So let's talk about understanding decluttering, because I think there's lots of implications with that. Some of us have junk drawers and feel like no one better ever touch it.
Yeah.
And one in our kitchen, one in our bathroom, and garages, and some of us have storage units. So how would you define decluttering, and how is it important to people, especially seniors, that they consider or don't?
So to me, there's different levels of decluttering that exist. And so for most people, I recommend that they begin kind of at a higher level, especially if they haven't done it forever or for a long time. So it would be, for example, going into maybe, like you had mentioned, the bathroom, and maybe one in the kitchen, one in the garage, a junk drawer, and get rid of the things that, we've all seen those batteries that are corroded. They're just taking up space. And so whether it's that, or it's things that are expired, or things that, let's face it, they're not working well anymore. People have a tendency, even me sometimes, to put things back in the drawer that really should be going into either a donation box or the trash or recycle. And so that's the first level. Then there's another level where you get, you've got some momentum, you're proud of yourself for getting some work done, and now you expand. So let's say you're in your bathroom again. So once you've gotten through your junk drawer, now you're going to want to go and look underneath the cabinets, right? Open those drawers up, and a lot of people have 4 or 5 or more bottles of shampoo or conditioner. And really yeah, yes. So do you need all of those? Especially if you're getting ready to downsize. You're going to have less space. So maybe keep 2 or 3 of them and consider donating the other stuff, the other 2 or 3 shampoos or the other 2 or 3 conditioners to one great place. There's a place called Wise Place, and it's coming this is their 100-year anniversary, and they take care of women, or actually, well, I think it's all women actually, who are either actively fleeing domestic violence or have left. And so donations are greatly appreciated. So that would be a great way to do that. And then for seniors, I'm going to say that if you want to maybe make a goal, depending on how much time you have before maybe you're going to downsize, maybe make a goal and say, I'm going to do a little bit over the next year. For example, you could say, hey, how about 15 minutes a day? Oh, 15 minutes goes by quickly, and it's really not very painful, if at all. So if you take 15 minutes a day over 365 days, you're going to get a lot done. And in some days, you're going to want to do even more because you're really getting into it. It's just going to make your move easier. Another way you can do it is maybe bring one of your kids over, or have a good friend of yours, and maybe grab some iced tea or a glass of wine, whatever you want, and sit down and go through some of this stuff together. It's important to have somebody, if you have a hard time, which some of us do, I get it, a hard time letting go of something, it's nice to have somebody who is able to help you talk through it. So when somebody gives me the opportunity to assist in that, I start off easy and gentle, and then if it feels like they can take it, I'll say, just get rid of it. Yeah.
I understand that. We went through that with my mom last year.
Yeah.
And it was very, very, very difficult process. What are some of the most common challenges that people face when they begin the decluttering process? Must seem so overwhelming, especially if they've lived in the same house for a long time, especially if a spouse passed away. What do you see some of those challenges?
So some of the biggest challenges really are, number one, they look at, let's pretend they're in a 3-bedroom house that's 2,000 square feet and they've lived there 45 years. That is overwhelming, even to me, to think I'm going to go in and declutter all right away. It actually doesn't work well that way. Nor would I ever recommend somebody do that. So it is overwhelming, but it really is just changing your mindset, right? So flip that upside down and say, I'm going to start in, let's call it the office. You go into the office, and instead of even looking at the whole room, let's say you start with the filing cabinet in the drawer. Go through there and pull out, like, for example, I did this just the other day for myself, so I'm not perfect. I pulled out, I had changed insurance companies. So I pulled out 2 prior years of insurance paperwork that was actually, no longer valid. So it's a good way. And honestly, that's like a 15-minute project. So that's a great way to get going. So the biggest advice I can give people is take your home and chunk it down into bite-sized pieces. Another thing is that and I understand this, that people are really emotionally attached to things, especially if it's a spouse that passed away. And I can appreciate that. I mean, it just hurts my heart for people that experience. I mean, we all do experience that, but it hurts, right? And I get that. So, so there's a couple different ways you can look at it. You can say, I'm definitely keeping this pile. I don't know if I'm going to keep this pile. And then another pile, which is I'm going to donate it. Because let's face it, things that you no longer need or want, there are plenty of people who could use it. Donate it to a charity that, for example, I often go to Mercy Warehouse in Laguna Niguel, and they take the stuff that we donate and turn around and put it into their warehouse, and they sell it. And that money is used to feed the community. It's a great charity. There's a lot of great charities. If you have a favorite one, that's a great place to target for the things that you're going to get rid of. And let's face it, some things are just plain old ready for the trash. So, but hopefully not too much of that. And one service I do offer my clients is if you are planning to donate items, like I'm not talking about a bedroom set, right? Or the kitchen, the dining room table that seats 15 or 16. I'm talking about household items, clothing, and that kind of thing. I will take that to Mercy Warehouse for free and donate it for you. So if people are interested in the service, or even if they're doing it for themselves, you're going to want to, number one, write out a complete list of what you're doing. Now, you don't have to say the red pants that have the button top zipper thing, but you can say, you write pants down, and if you're donating 15 or 20 of them, just put a check mark next to that. The other thing I did learn from a CPA is you're going to want to take a picture of things. You don't have to take a picture of every single pair of pants, but maybe in a cluster. So do that. And then, so I'll write the list for people when I'm hired to do that. And then we can have them take a picture so they have it handy on their phone and they can store it in the, wherever they're going to store it. And then I donate it and I get a receipt for them. Now, that's if you want to use it for tax write-off purposes. So, it's kind of a full circle thing.
But steps you take, because everybody's different, everybody has a different situation, and some of them is family together, so we need to go pushing. So when you first think what you do,
Valerie, I'm having a hard time hearing you.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. So there's a couple different ways that I will approach working with somebody, but it's always, started with a conversation. And I find out, what is their goal, in their project. Is it just organizing? Is it just decluttering? They really are two different things. But they are, they're kissing cousins, right? And then the other service that I had mentioned is I pack people up for a move, or if you're getting your house remodeled or a room remodeled, I have been hired many times to do that for people. Pack it in boxes and move it to a different room. And then once you move into a place, I can also unpack and organize your home for you. So I just need to find out what it is that they're needing. What is their biggest priority? So for example, if I'm going into a home and they want me to unpack, I ask, what room is most important to you, or what rooms? Now, I have an idea of what that is. So I've had clients say to me, I don't know. And I'll tell them probably the kitchen and your primary bedroom and your primary bathroom. If you have those things ready for you to go into and use, it just takes a big hassle away, let's face it. And so then from there, I have a couple different things. I do offer a new client special. And so that's a buy 3 hours, get the fourth for free. When I do that, I do not come over and provide an estimate up front. I do it when I go to their home and I give them their 4 hours of work. And then afterwards, they've gotten a really good idea of what I can do for them. And then I can go in and if they're still requiring, which is okay, of course, an estimate, then I can go and provide that for them at that point. So there's really not everybody fits into a mold. And I meet people where they're at and provide what they're looking for. I have a prospective client coming up next week. Her brother's in his mid-80s. He can't walk anymore. And he has a couple of rooms full of medical books and, just a good life well lived. And he needs help, let's face it. And I'm happy to do that. I hope that when, I'm in need of help, that somebody's going to be there for me too.
Yes, we all do. So do you give people like a list? If you go to meet with them once and you're going to come back and then start working with them later on, do you give them like a list, a checklist of some kind, or you walk through their house the first time and kind of tell them this is what we're going to do when I come back and I get started?
I can, whether it's a list or just, I haven't actually provided a list, to be honest with you, maybe a verbal list, so let's say, for example, the gentleman and his sister that I'm going to be at his home, this coming week, I'm going to find out which room they want me to start in, and I'm going to get going. So let's pretend it's his library with all of his medical books. I come and I provide all of the heavy duty packing boxes at my cost. So there's no upcharge for those. And so she had asked, how many, can you help me estimate how many boxes? I'm like, you don't need to worry about it. I have a gigantic SUV and I show up with a bunch of boxes and I just get started. So I ask people where their biggest pain point is, and that will be where I begin. And one of the reasons, honestly, what I do is kind of like a puzzle. And there's some strategy that's required. And so when I get to a place, I really need to stop for even a few minutes and think about what I'm going to do and what would be the most efficient and effective way for me to get going. Can't hear you.
What advice would you have for families who are assisting their aging parents in the downsizing process?
Number one, be patient with your family member. It's not always easy to let go and downsize, right? And by the way, they're going to go through this too themselves. So just remember that. So patience, taking breaks, chunking things into manageable steps for the family. They can also find out, let's pretend, like I'm the daughter. I actually do have a mom, right? She's still with us. And I would find out if she even wants to be there while I'm doing it. Do you want to maybe go to the spa for the day, go shopping, go out to lunch with friends, give me at least 4 hours if you don't want to be there, because I'm going to get more done if you're not there, to be honest with you, as long as I have some safeguards for, hey, this is a great story. So I had a woman who asked me to go into a really large, like a laundry area. And she said, just throw everything away. And I was like, okay. And it was very cluttered. I could hardly even get into the room. You know what I got out of that room for her? Number one, several years of her tax returns with her social security number on it. Yeah. I also found her daughter's first baby tooth. Oh, you know what? You didn't want me to throw that away. So, and when I showed it to her, she's like, oh my gosh, thank you. And with all of the theft going on these days, you don't need your social security number easily available to people. They can go on the dark web maybe and work harder for it, but let's not hand it to them. The other thing is, consider working with somebody like me. It's not just me. Well, you can work with just me, but I also have access to a team of people. So if you have time, take the time to go through things more thoughtfully. If you don't, bring a team that you trust, and have them go ahead and do your project for you.
Have you had a situation yet where a family was in another state or out of town and they put you in charge of it? And was that been a little bit more difficult?
Yeah, it can be, that's really in the mind of the person hiring me. So, I always talk to people, and if they want to do a Zoom like this, I'm happy to do it. But I talk to them and I get them comfortable with what I can do for them. And then I also like to ask people, tell me about your parent. I want to get to know them some before I just show up. I want to know that they love gardening or whatever, because by the way, so do I. And so that's going to be something fun for us to talk about and share as maybe we're going through the decluttering process. So that's one thing. The other thing is have them really think out a strategy. Do you want me to also bring in a company that will, that you have to hire, right? But to take away the extra 2-bedroom sets, or, those extra dressers, or the extra anything in your home to help continue working on the process of decluttering, and in the process, probably to downsize in some cases. Or let's face it, as we get older, a lot of us are going to not walk quite as well as we used to. So if we have a lot of stuff in our space and in the way, it's a tripping hazard, and you don't want that. That's a real serious safety issue. So it's, I have found that people who are out of state, or even like up north and it's just too far, they have full-time jobs, they have a life, whatever you want to call it. They're happy to work with somebody like me in my company. It's a relief for them because they have things they have to do themselves. And so to hire a professional who's going to go in and be kind to their parents is a real gift.
Yes, absolutely. And as you know, I think you know, my mom is still alive. She's 104 and still alive. We went
Woo,
through the
nice.
first, and we're really lucky. We went through the first downsizing and decluttering process with her about a year and a half ago, when she moved out of a home she'd been in for 40 years and had all of the stuff that she'd brought from Indiana, and we'd never gone through it. And it's very emotional. It's very emotional. And she has a pan that my great grandmother made, I think, made biscuits in.
Oh, nice.
An aluminum pan, a baking pan.
Right.
And so we could not give that away.
No.
Some things we did give away. And since then, you know, Laura, I wish I had known about a company called Artifacts.
Oh, yeah. I've heard of them.
Yeah. And apparently, and I'm sure since you are in this business, you know that we can take pictures of the things that are important to, like my mom or your clients. And then Artifacts is like a software company, and I don't endorse them at all. I just happen to know you could even do it on your own software, right? You know, PowerPoint or whatever, and take pictures of things. So then they still have those pictures.
Yes.
And I wish I had thought about that with my mom, because there's so many things that we forced her. I will say, you know, we encouraged her strongly to get rid of. And I wish for her benefit that we had pictures. And
absolutely.
People just don't think of that.
No, right. I mean, it's kind of a newer idea, especially for a senior. Let's face it. So it's a great way. You could even have, you know, it put on the photo frames where it's a revolving, you know, set of pictures. And so you get to look at this stuff, and it brings you happiness and joy every day. Another thing that I have talked to clients about is, let's just say they don't want to do that. But they can take, so for example, one client of mine, her daughter passed away when she was 13 years old. And she had, you know, a favorite dress that she used to love wearing as a little girl. She loves ladybugs. She liked to cook. And so I said, why don't we go through your stuff and consider creating a curated by you shadow box of memories. So you can actually see the real thing. And it's going to be preserved more because it's behind glass and it's displayed, you know, beautifully. So I've had a few people take me up on that offer, and it's honestly, to me, it's really a loving thing to do for them, because I haven't lost a child. But I've lost friends and family. And so, you know, it's a good way to display things, not unlike what you had just mentioned.
Laura, I was in a memory care center here in Southern California a few weeks ago, and outside each room of each of their patients or residents, they have a shadow box.
Oh.
And they encourage them to bring something, and some of them do bring something from home. And then they also put in there things that they make, like some craft item or something.
Oh, fun. Yeah.
So for some people, they're able to then look at that. And one man has some memorabilia from the 49ers on his door.
Right.
And so it helps them connect also.
Yes.
So whether they have a memory issue or not, and that's certainly a good idea for a lot of different reasons.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I had no idea. I like their thought.
Let's talk about, and I think that talking about, like we just did, talking about families who have to go through this or give it to you to do on their own must be very difficult for you. And in one situation, I was asked to do this for a family, and I went through the house, and there was their mom's wedding dress and their mom's birth certificate. And I said, don't you want this stuff? And they said, no, we don't.
Really?
It's hard for me to give it away. I'm sure you must be in those situations also.
Yes, I am. You know, what I do is one of the most personal things you could ever do for anybody. And it's, I consider it a blessing and an honor, a privilege, honestly, to be invited into somebody's home to do this for them. And so here's another example. Actually, it's the woman whose daughter died at 13. Her husband has expressed frustration over the clutter in their primary bathroom. And closet and that kind of stuff. And so she hired me to come in for the day, and we were going through her clothes. And she actually brought out her wedding dress. Huh?
Now we're getting personal, right? You go into the closets.
Oh, yes, very personal, right? And so she pulled out, some dresses that were in, whatever the kind of bags that really will keep them nice. And so she had all of these beautiful sequin dresses for galas. And she goes, I'll never fit into this one again. And I said, well, you know what? Let's donate it. Somebody's going to love it, right? Wouldn't that be fun to just know that somebody's going to put this to good use? But her wedding dress was there too. And she goes, I really don't like this dress at all. And she goes, my kids are not going to wear it. I know that. And I said, okay, well, she goes, but I don't want to just give it away. So here is another thing people can do. There is a company, and I would have to look it up online again, but there is a company that actually takes beautiful things, fabrics, dresses, whatever, and they create burial clothing for infants and little kids, for families who can't afford it. And so it's, to me, I'm actually getting chills talking about it. It's such a wonderful thing to do, for a family that has gone through such a tragic loss. And it's a beautiful way to send them off.
Almost somewhat like donating an organ, or you give something to somebody else's life and somebody else's family.
Yeah. So when I had mentioned that to her, she said, you know what, that's perfect. And so I got back to her right away, and she sent it off to them to use for somebody.
So as we talk through this, Laura, I'm realizing that it's important to think of decluttering not as just getting rid of junk.
No.
And I'm listening to you talk about how you take it as a personal honor, so to speak, that someone invites you to their home to go through those things. Because whether it might seem junk to somebody, to those people, it has memories connected with it.
Yeah.
The dress you wore when, or even the little soap things, oh yeah, I remember because I was in a convention and this happened and that's where I was. And everything has a
story.
Yeah, a story. Absolutely a story.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about do you have any suggestions for people that are listening to this and thinking, she's right. I need to do some of that in my own house. So what are some of the basic suggestions that you have for getting started? And you recommend any tools or resources for somebody that wants to get started doing some decluttering on their own?
Sure. One of the things you're going to want to do is, number one, figure out, if it's clothing, maybe write out your list or put it on the computer, whatever you prefer, of the place that you want to take your donations to. So I had a gentleman who had lots and lots of beautiful stuff that, from a long history of having fabulous parties at his home. His wife had passed away. And so there were, and he was going to donate them. There were lots and lots of things that were lovely, absolutely stunning. But he didn't have a use for it anymore. He's not going to be throwing a dinner party for 50 any longer. And so he donated this stuff to the American Cancer Society. Right. So is that the kind of place that you'd like to donate things to? Or is it a women's shelter? Or let's face it, I've known a few men who have been abused by women, physically abused too. How about donating it to people who could really use this? You're blessing them, and they really need blessings. They've been through hell and back, let's face it. So if you can do that, they're so appreciative of it. If you want to take some socks and shoes to an area where they're going to give it to people who are homeless, they really appreciate that stuff. So figure out where you'd like some of your stuff to go. That would be the first step. And also remember, there's a lot of things that you're going to want to get donated, let's say, that are bigger. It's not just clothing and socks. So what do you have that's bigger that you're going to probably actually get, not probably, you're going to have to hire a company to come get them. One thing to know is that there are companies that do that, of course, and they go and they resell it. So it's not going into the trash and into the dump. Other tools would be, I can be hired as a consultant. Okay, let's face it. We can go through a list, like for me, a logical list, because that just comes natural to me, of what to do. And that could be easily, we could talk for let's say a half hour, and then I could go and write up a list of things for them to do. And then they could work on executing the plan. In some cases, people do great, and I'm really proud of them. And I always, you can check in and cheer them on. In some cases, they realize it's more than they can handle, and then they'll get back to me or whoever, and move forward with hiring somebody to help them with it. But there's no harm in just getting started yourself and seeing if you want to do it, can you do it? So those are some great tools. I know that there's some organizing things you can find just by searching the internet, and you may find that useful as well.
And I know that for our listeners, there's also the term that's called a senior move manager, which is someone who does what you do, and as you mentioned, even go a little bit further to coordinate the move and help them get along to their next place. The downsizing, the decluttering, the downsizing. So let's switch to downsizing a little bit, Laura. We have a few minutes left. What are some of the key considerations for seniors who are planning to downsize? Maybe they've gone through the decluttering, they've gone through the stuff that they really don't need to keep, but they still have to downsize. Like you said, some big furniture, or going to a smaller home and they don't want to get rid of it. Maybe they need a storage unit. So what are some of the things that they should think about? I think you've covered some of them, but let's talk about those.
Sure. So considerations would be, do you need it? Do you love it? Do you have to have it? Those are really good questions to ask. Have you used it in the last year or even 5 years? So there's a mental list that you can go through like that. Additional things would be, how big is the place that I'm moving into, right? That would that would be a great way to help guide you, honestly, in terms of how much you need to donate. Let's face it. So educating yourself or your kids in conjunction with you, or even somebody like me, helping understand, let's go back to that 3-bedroom house that's 2,000 square feet. Are you moving into a 1 or 2 bedroom place? Okay, so that automatically means we're going to get rid of a bedroom set and dressers and that kind of stuff. Do you have extra clothing? Or how about this? I know this happens to a lot, me too, let's face it. I have clothes in more than one closet. Yeah, I like clothes. Excuse me. And there are different seasons too. So even though we're here in Southern California, I've adjusted to what I call the seasons out here. So I have winter clothes and summer clothes. We're wimps out here. But anyway, so do you have room in a smaller place for all your clothes? Maybe not. Maybe you take so we're in summer now. Maybe you have somebody like me or your kids or whoever come in and pack up your fall and winter clothes. Put them in, you can go to Home Depot, let's say, and buy inexpensive boxes, cardboard boxes, and clearly label those. That's a great consideration. Now, where are you going to put those boxes, though, when you move into your next place? Maybe you have an attic at the next place. Maybe you don't. So if you don't, maybe you have some storage in the garage, and maybe you don't. So then are you going to put it into a storage unit? these are all considerations you should really think through seriously before you begin, because it's going to help guide you. Like I said, if you don't have 3 walk-in closets at your next place, you probably need to downsize your clothing, right? So maybe go through and pick out the things that you consider. How about this? Pull out the things that you've worn in the last year. Those are your keepers. And then the other ones are something that you'd probably consider.
Well, I have to admit that I was born and raised in northern Indiana, right across the lake, Michigan from Chicago, where it was very, very cold.
Yes.
And I loved my winter sweaters.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to admit that I do have 1 or 2 of those still. And I'm certainly not in high school anymore, as we all know.
Right.
But so we all have a few things that we stay attached to.
We do.
We do. Tell us about a success story from your work. And you've shared a few of them with me that particularly stand out to you.
So one success story is having or going into a person's new home that they bought when they downsized. Beautiful ocean view. Hey, lucky for you, right? And I literally brought a team in with me, and we unpacked and organized their entire new property. It was a single family home in a retirement community. Excuse me, but imagine a 2,000 square foot or even 1,500. It depends on what people need and want. But it was a 2,000 square foot home that they had downsized to. And it was completely unpacked, organized. Everything was put away in one day. Wow. To me, that's exciting. Even though I unpack when I move quicker than most people I know, imagine going to your home and all the spices are there. They're all, categorized or alphabetized. All of your shirts are folded or in, organized in your closet. All of your yoga mats and weights. Everything. You just move in. It's great. So that's one really great success story. See another one. I mean, I have a lot of them, but to me, that was just fabulous. Well,
that is a great one. And we're going to be moving later this year. So I'm certainly going to recruit you to help us out because
we fantastic.
Need a help ourselves. I think, and back to the idea of a move manager, I think that people think of your capacity as being limited, and listening to you now today, as I have, and as our listeners have, I know that it's a great thing to think about decluttering, but then where do you go from there and all of these other things? And if you are going to move, to use you as a move manager, so to speak, where you can help them. And how great to get to the next house, or people who have moved here from out of state or another city, and then they come here and then you're able to help them declutter, so to speak. And a lot of times people pack stuff. Then when they get to the new house, they realize they don't really need it.
Right. Or they don't have room for it. I was just, I worked for 2 days at a person's home this last week. And I said, you've got more stuff than you have house. I said, so what's the next step? So I walked her through some logical next steps. And, so it's like, are you, so now that we've determined that, do you really need 50 bowls? I mean, I'm not kidding you. They had so many bowls. It was crazy. And it's just her and her boyfriend. So probably don't need 50 bowls. It's a process, and you're right. When people move or get ready to move, it's amazing how, we all kind of take on another mindset and we're more willing to let go of things. Excuse me, I've got some allergy situations here.
Yes, and I'm sorry. And thank you for being such a good sport and being with us today.
Yeah.
How do you see, or do you see, the decluttering and downsizing, especially decluttering, changing it all in the future? Anything to do with the environment or any software programs or anything else that you see that might be changing in your industry?
Well, one thing that I know is changed. Well, this part has changed, and that is to actually have companies that want to come in and take your stuff and resell it. There's a whole market out there now for people that want to either spiff something up, maybe repaint it or something, and they're going to come in and buy the stuff and take it home and do something special with it. So it's not going into the dump, which is good, right? The other thing is when I've gone to shows, there are always really neat gadgets, gizmos, new ways of thinking about a space differently. So, for example, over the last several years, most of us have gotten into water bottles or coffee bottles. And most clients I go into their home, they've got lots of them, lots and lots and lots. So there's a really great system, a little rack, essentially, that goes into your cabinet. And you can begin, instead of lining them up one after another, you actually go like this. And so you can get more in less space. It's really great. So instead of it taking up a whole couple of cabinet shelves, I was able to get it into one shelf for a family. And, going back to the moving thing, I used to be a project manager, so I know how to take things from the beginning through the end. And so, it's ideas like the water bottle, for example, and how can I take something and make it more efficient in your place that you're moving to. I've moved several times. I've helped people move, and it's really a process, and it's about being logical and getting things in place in time. And, quite frankly, taking a lot of the worry and the organization off of your shoulders and putting on to somebody like me.
How has this business changed your life and your career, so to speak, your professional life? Is there anything that you have any plans for how you'd like to develop this? I kind of wonder, is there anything that once you got started was a big surprise to you, a big aha, like I wish I had known this? Or now that I see how this works, I think I could help people better because I can do this.
Sure. So one of the big ahas, because, I've done, organizing and decluttering and packing on for years for free for family and friends. So as I have ventured out and with my business, I have come to learn that everyone could use my services. Not everyone's going to take me up on it, though. But the people who really, really need me, and it's my pleasure, are seniors. Let's face it, most of us don't stay in tip-top shape, including me. Hello. And moving, it's a lot. It's physical. And it's mental. And, that mental stuff is exhausting, right? So that would be one thing to think about. Also, what if somebody has a handicap? They need my help. I helped a client who is in a wheelchair, and his wife was there to help, but he could only do so much. And so those are people who could really use my help. How about this one? A family, a mom and dad, or a mom and a mom, whatever the situation is, and they have little kids, maybe an infant and a toddler. Could you, it's enough, your day's hectic enough as it is with your children at home. Imagine just being able to hand that off to somebody else. And you guys go to the park, go swimming. If they're a little bit older, go to Six Flags, Magic Mountain, go have fun, make some staycation plans and let the real professionals go in and handle it for you. It's such a relief for people, and I really appreciate helping them.
This has been a real pleasure having you with us. I've learned a lot, and
Thank you.
Have a great appreciation for you and what you do. And I'm glad that we were introduced. Just for background, Laura was introduced to me by a dear friend of mine who manages homeowners associations. And she also is a very organized person. And so I knew that anyone that she referred me to was going to be a a prize. And certainly I've learned that about Laura.
Thank
Laura,
you.
before we go, how can people reach you? Because I'm sure there are people listening to this that are saying, all right, it's true. I need to do some of that. I need to declutter a little bit. I'm not ready to downsize, but definitely. In fact, I'm sitting here thinking about our storage unit that we've had for 10 years, thinking, all right, maybe I should take Laura over there with me. So how can people find you?
So you can find me. I do have a LinkedIn page or profile. So look me up, Laura Maldonado, on LinkedIn, and I do have some information on there. Also, you can reach out to me. It's Laura at Recreate Spaces with an S on the end, Laura at recreatespaces.com, or call me, text me, 949-521-4143. Once again, 949-521-4143.
We are so honored to have you this afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being with us. I know I'm going to use you, and I'm sure you're going to hear from some of our listeners. Thank you very much, and we wish you all the best in your business, and we thank you for what you do for your customers. Thank you, Laura Maldonado.
Thank you. Have a good, thank you.